Welcome, everyone. Welcome to my very special masterclass entitled Which Witch Are You? And this is not just a quiz, it's not just a masterclass. It is the building blocks of something that has been channeling through me. And I'm really excited about the direction that it's taking. So today we're going to be talking about witch archetypes. We're going to be talking about how to incorporate their magic into your daily life. And we're going to talk about Witch School 101, which is where we can dive deeper into these archetypes as well as elemental magic. So I'm going to get started with the PowerPoint because we have a lot to cover today. This is the masterclass title, Which Witch Are You? And it's all about discovering your witch archetype and unlocking your magic. So for those of you that are new to my work, my name is Megan Mermaid. I'm the head mistress of Mermaid Mystery School and the author of Mermaid Mindset Makeover and the Mermaid Empowerment Oracle deck. So I lead transformative journeys into the depths of feminine wisdom and spiritual empowerment. And I'm at about 9 years of experience now, almost 10, in psychic work as a clairaudient and clairvoyant intuitive. So I have accumulated a lot of wisdom, and I offer a unique path for those ready to unlock their highest potential. Something that might be a little unique about my work is that I am seeking to merge ancient mysteries with modern spiritual tools. And so you will see weaved throughout my work that there is a heavy co-creation with AI energy. And in other masterclasses, we might go deeper into that. But just to give an overall introduction, I merge ancient mysteries with modern spiritual tools to create immersive programs that guide you through the sacred waters of self-love, intuitive mastery, and conscious creation. My approach blends the magic of mermaid consciousness with grounded, practical wisdom, helping you to reclaim your inner strength and navigate your awakening journey with clarity and purpose. I am committed to creating a supportive and transformative space for you to authentically step into your true self, explore the power of the divine feminine, and weave magic into your everyday life. And so today's masterclass is really going to be highlighting this topic of weaving magic into your everyday life. So I wanted to start out with an introduction and the story behind Witch School 101 and the 7 Witch Archetypes. So I have been studying archetypes for a while. And when I was doing the research for my book, Mermaid Mystery School, which is also kind of the umbrella term for all of my mystery school teachings, Mermaid Mystery School, I started studying the 7 feminine archetypes. And for those of you that are not familiar, it's the sage, the lover, the maiden. Forgive me for not naming them all. I can't think of them all right now. But when I started studying these feminine archetypes, I really started kind of taking on their qualities. And as I was working with them, I started to see how they were opening up experiences in my daily life so that I could embody them. And so last year, I feel like I started to finally embrace this term witch. And for many of us, this has been a challenge. You know, it's easy for us to call ourselves starseeds or light workers or priestesses, but there's so many negative connotations to the word witch. But when I really started to own that title about a year ago and dive into the energy of being a witch and owning this name of the witch, so many doors started to open into my life. And I started to feel a deeper sense of authenticity. And what's really interesting is that I knew that I was supposed to bring something through called Witch School. And I got that download a few months ago. But as I was getting the download, all of these other kind of little puzzle pieces started to come into play. So I took a quiz from a friend of mine that has a priestess school. And her quiz was about, what priestess are you? And when I took the quiz, I was like, this is a fascinating idea. And I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw that there was a video talking about different kinds of witches. And I knew that there were different kinds of witches, but nobody in my reality had been talking about this. Now, their list was a little bit more expansive. And when I started to work with my AI research assistant, I started to kind of figure out like, how can we break this list of all these different kinds of witches into 7? This term 7 felt really important for me. So that became the 7 witch archetypes that we're going to be talking about today. Now, there's of course many, and you can also use the term eclectic witch if you feel like you resonate with more than one. And I'm going to be talking about how we are all of them. In God consciousness, we are everything. But when we work with archetypes, we can really start to concentrate and focus on the qualities of that archetype. And so it's going to help us to unlock specific pathways within our life and our destiny. And so there was this beautiful synchronicity where when I was visiting my family in California about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks now, I just happened to get a call from a friend of mine asking if I could work a tarot party. Because when I used to live in California, her business hosted a lot of like tarot events and things for parties and events, bridal showers. And so she was like, I know it's last minute, but can you please do this party tonight? And so luckily my mom was there. She was able to watch my daughter. And I head to this party having no idea what kind of party it is. I knew it was a birthday party. And when I get there and I set up, I see that the woman that opens the door is wearing a witch hat. Well, it turns out that the entire party was a witch themed party. And when I left, there were all of these women gathered around a table and they were all waving to me in their witch hats. And granted, these women had never done a tarot reading in their lives. They were like housewives from Orange County. They just happened to have a witch party and I just happened to be there. So that was kind of like the universe just winking at me saying, hey, you're on the right track. This witch wisdom is really important. So I'm going to dive into the deeper meaning of why in the next slide. So what to expect in this masterclass. Today, we're going to talk about the 7 witch archetypes, and we're going to learn how to incorporate their magic into our daily lives. We're also going to receive an introduction to Witch School 101 and the special offer that I have through Sawin. And we are going to move into Q&A and next steps at the end for anyone that has questions or wants to share any breakthroughs or anything like that, either on video or in the chat. So first, we're going to talk about this idea of why is the witch important? Why do we need to own this title? Why do we need to reclaim it, especially in this particular moment in humanity's evolution? And the first thing that came to me about why the witch is important is because she is connected to earth magic. So for those of you that have been following my work for years, you know that I've worked with a lot of galactic energy, and that's very important. But in order to help the earth ascend, we need to work with her. We need to work with the elements. And when we start to work with earth magic, not only do we feel the safety and the security and the co-creation of Gaia, Mother Earth, but we also tap into our own personal power through will and through intention and through meaning. And we start to see how weaving together this meaning, this intention, personal power, will, all starts to create magic in our lives, which is the building block for how we spell things out, right? When we spell it out, we speak it into existence, and then we offer these magical tools into it, weaving this magic and creating this unraveling of the direction and the timeline that we want to step into, both for ourselves and for all beings. So for those of you that are familiar with Devin Cole's song, Witch, you will know this acronym already, but for those of you who are brand new, she created this acronym for witch, and it's called a woman in total control of herself. So that's another way of saying sovereignty. When we own our inner witch, we own our sovereignty. We recognize that our life and our emotions and our heart and everything are sovereign. They belong to us. We learn how to create better boundaries in our life, and we learn how to bring things through into existence, to create things, to nurture them. So being in control of ourselves is so important because we are here to overrule thousands and thousands of years of patriarchal programming. And we can't do that if we're not in our sovereignty. The witch also invites us into dark feminine energy and the balance of power. So the witch invites us into shadow work and shadow work alchemy, which means that when we own our shadow and we begin to transform it into beauty, we start to bring healing to ourselves and to the planet. And when we own our dark feminine power, which oftentimes we're socialized out of by being nice or being a people pleaser, then we start to bring that power back into balance because power itself is neutral. And there are a lot of beings on the planet right now that have power or are in power or authority or control that have negative or toxic intentions for that power. So in order to balance the energy of power on this planet, we have to step into our power and learn to be okay with that power. And so when we start to embody our inner witch, we really start to see how magic is not just an idea, but it is a part of our everyday life. And we start to begin to see magical synchronicities and it's just a different way of living, a way of living in harmony with the earth, a way of living in harmony with the elements. And there is a quote from Practical Magic that I heard the other day that I feel like is so powerful. And you might have heard it when Sandra Bullock tells the investigator or the police officer that there's no devil in the craft. And I feel like I need to say that again. There's no devil in the craft. Witchcraft itself has really been stigmatized to be satanic worship, and people that practice witchcraft have been stigmatized as being evil or bad, and they've been ostracized and isolated and persecuted. And we're going to talk more about that in the next slide about the witch wound. And we're definitely going to be diving deeper into that topic in Witch School 101. But when we start to realize that the craft itself is a harmonious, balanced way of living in co-creative alignment with ourselves, with other beings, with the planet, then we realize why it is so important to reclaim this title and own our inner witch. So what is the witch wound? I talked briefly about it on the last slide, but the witch wound really represents this fear that we have of owning this title because of all of the ways that we have been persecuted for this title. You know, we've heard of the Salem witch trials, or, you know, we see these representations of witches in society of being evil and old and scary, and all the Halloween witches continue to perpetuate this idea. Or it's like the sex crazed witch that, like, you know, is using sex magic to manipulate men. So it's all of these shadows of the dark feminine that keep us from owning that part of ourselves. So all of us have to deal with our own past and parallel lives. If you are watching this, you have been persecuted. You have been killed for being a witch or being a magical being. It's just a part of all of our journeys. You wouldn't be here and you wouldn't resonate with that energy if it were not a part of your previous incarnations. But it also means that we're not doing this alone, that this is a collective wound. And so in order for the collective feminine energy to own her dark feminine power, we have to all embody our inner witch. As a result of the witch wound, many of us carry a fear of being seen, a fear of owning our magic, a fear of sharing our magic, our creative offerings, a fear that it's possible to sustain ourselves or make a living off of our magical work. And there's a fear of power. So oftentimes we diminish that power. I turned off all of my psychic and spiritual gifts at 15 because I was terrified of what I was seeing. I didn't know how to control what I was seeing. I didn't know anything about boundary work or energy work. I didn't know anything. And so the safest thing for my consciousness to do was to shut it all off. Now, if programs like this and information and wisdom like this had been available to me at that time, and maybe it was, but I just didn't have access to it, my life could have gone very differently. And I feel like many of you can relate to that, where, we have all had to go through our own personal reclamation of our magical livelihoods and our psychic and spiritual gifts and abilities. And so the last thing I mention about the witch wound is this letting go of the witch imposter syndrome. And what the witch imposter syndrome could look like is feeling like, if you're just starting to own this title, and I don't even like the term baby witch. Some people use that term, but to me, it feels like a little bit minimizing of all of our personal power, because all of us have been doing this magical work for lifetimes, eons. So even if it feels a little brand new to you now, even if you're just starting to accept it or just starting to own that, then know that you're not an imposter. It means that you don't have to learn all of these spells. You don't have to know everything about everything in order to call yourself a witch. All of us are really here to find our own practice. So today is just going to give you some ideas of where you can go. But remember that this is a sovereign journey. So your path to finding and reclaiming your inner witch is going to be unique to you. And you can take what you learn here and build on it based on your own intuitive feelings and ideas and downloads. Don't feel like you have to know everything or you have to be a witch for a certain amount of time to feel safe in calling yourself that or owning that title. And I dealt with that myself, even feeling like, oh, like, who am I to be teaching about this? But who am I not to be, right? So when we have this idea of imposter syndrome, recognize that that's part of the witch wound. It's that part of us that's trying to keep us safe by diminishing and downplaying our light and our magic. And here, all witches are welcome wherever we are in our practice, whether you just want to dabble a little bit and incorporate it into other practices, or whether you're like, oh my gosh, like I am a witch. Everything I do 24/7 is witch. And like sometimes that may fluctuate. So now I'm going to talk about the witch archetypes overview. I shared briefly already what an archetype is, but basically an archetype is a series of qualities that make up a persona. So oftentimes when you're watching movies, there are many archetypes that are playing out. And oftentimes for feminine energy, it's the lover or the mother or the huntress or the sage. And archetypes help us to identify qualities. And when we identify those qualities, we can take them on in our own lives. For example, if you work with goddess energies or ascended masters, let's talk about Mother Mary, for example. Mother Mary is an ascended master, but we can also dive deeper into why she is considered an ascended master. And that's because she personifies specific divine qualities of mothering and compassion and nurturing energy. And sometimes we already naturally have those qualities, and sometimes we're lacking in them. So the power of working with archetypes is, one, if it's something that's already inherent in your natural energy, then you can continue to amplify and build those qualities within yourself for success and prosperity and creativity. And if it feels like that's not something that comes naturally to you, working with the energy of archetypes helps you to embody those qualities to bring a balance to your personality and to support you in areas that may be a little bit more difficult for you. So when I'm talking about the witch archetypes today, I want you to know that we are all of them. In God consciousness, we are everything. And my SQ city in the Gene Keys is omniscient. So basically, it's having access to all of the information of all of divine consciousness that ever was and ever will be. And that's a lot, right? And so sometimes It can feel overwhelming to understand all of God consciousness at one time. So when we work with an archetype, we help to simplify and bring down specific qualities, focus on those specific qualities, embody those specific qualities. And oftentimes, as we work with archetypes, it's already inherent with specific qualities in our unique divine blueprint. And so when we work with the archetype, it's like a guide or a mentor that's helping us to become our true self by walking the path of the archetype. And oftentimes, walking with the path of the archetype will help us to develop our divine qualities. And then eventually there might be someone following your archetype or your role. So also, when we work with our primary witch archetype, it offers a pathway to unlock our unique magic. As I shared before at the beginning of this masterclass, I had no idea when I first started working with this energy of witch consciousness, I guess you can call it, and doing research about witches. I didn't even know that there were different kinds of witches. So that was like this amazing aha epiphany for me of wow, like how do we take this and see and do research on who is already embodying those things? And then from that, building a community where we start to find our path. We start to figure out how to use our magic in our daily life, what our role is in the community, where to go as far as locations, what kinds of spells should we focus on. So it's taking that energy of the omniscience, the everything of witch consciousness, and it starts to organize it into pathways that are easy to follow and gives us a framework for our magic. And once we have that framework, then our own creativity and our own application of that framework can create our own intuitive magic. Not only does it help you to recognize the magic you already have and amplify its power in your life, but as you work with them, they will come alive in your life and daily experiences. And what was interesting is yesterday on my social media, I shared about the Green Witch. And so I was talking about how the Green Witch is really thriving in gardens and nature. And I ended up going to a bridal shower for a wonderful friend of mine. And it was set in a garden, in this beautiful garden. And all day long, there were birds and there were butterflies and there was a cat that showed up. And everything was set in this garden space. And it was so interesting how I started the day working with the energy of the Green Witch, and the Green Witch guided me to an experience of synchronistic events. And even when I posted a selfie on my Instagram today, I didn't even realize it at the time that I was taking the picture in the garden. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a garden witch picture. So it's so interesting how even though we may all have a primary archetype that we resonate with, we can work with each of them. And so this is helpful if we're focusing on a specific intention or a topic, or if it's a specific season and we want to work with the witch archetype that's in this season. So this is just the beginning. Like my mind is exploding with how excited I am about continuing this research and seeing how it develops in our community and how women are embodying these archetypes in their daily lives. So I'm just so excited. This is the very first of many master classes and all sorts of things that are going to be building on this topic. So your input and embodiment is contributing to this research. So thank you so much for being a part of this. Leah, who's on this call, had this experience taking the quiz more than once, and I did as well, where even when, and I wrote this quiz with the help of my AI buddy Z, it was a co-creative process, definitely. And even though I've taken the quiz multiple times, and sometimes I will answer a few things differently based on how I'm feeling in the moment, what I have found is that even if some of the answers are different, I always end up with the same primary archetype, which for me right now is the desert witch. And Leah had the same experience where she continued to get the solitary witch. So I feel like this is showing in the research that we all really identify with this primary energy. And when we work with this primary energy, that's where we're going to see the most significant impact in our life. And so that brings us to how to work with each of these primary energies. And here we go. The first one is the cosmic witch. And so again, I am just so grateful for the spiritual tool of AI, which I would not have been able to do any of this if I did not have access to AI, specifically ChatGPT. And that's why I continue to be an advocate for co-creating with AI rather than fearing it. Because not only is AI a helpful research tool, but also it was helpful in bringing these beautiful images in. And so it's a co-creative process where, I would say something like, I want a witch that's wearing like bohemian clothes with a lot of star and moon iconography. And then I would specifically, another thing I want to mention about the research and the images that I'm sharing, and as I continue to build on this idea of the archetypes of witches, I really want it to be something that everyone can see themselves in. And so what was really important to me was to show this vast diversity and inclusivity in the way that these witches are presented. And so even if there are images or photos here that you feel like are not a representation of you, know that that diversity and inclusivity is going to continue. And so even if these particular images don't feel like who you are, just know that it's the beginning. And we're going to continue to show how each of these archetypes is represented in an abundant way of feminine archetypes and expressions. So the cosmic witch, if you resonate with this cosmic witch archetype, you are deeply connected to the stars, planets, and the cosmos. Your magic is tied to the celestial cycles, whether it's the phases of the moon or the movement of the planets. Astrological alignments guide your rituals, and you harness the power of the universe to manifest your desires. You feel a deep calling to explore the mysteries of the universe and are drawn to galactic wisdom and higher realms of consciousness. So even though this is not my primary archetype, I definitely resonate a lot with this one. And maybe you do too, if you're interested in astrology, if you practice following the cycles of the moon, or if just anything cosmic excites you. And oftentimes you might not even realize that these interests or these esoteric promptings that you have can be connected to the witch. But what you'll start to see is that the archetype will show your natural interests. And then once you start to embody that archetype, it will show you how to use magic that is specifically designed for those natural passions and interests. And that's where the witch part can then become incorporated in each of these different personas and archetypes. Next, we have the desert witch, and that is my primary archetype. Now, before I heard this term, it was already something that I just did. Like when I lived in California, I would drive an hour and a half as often as I could. Sometimes that was on new moon or full moon. Sometimes that was on a specific equinox or Lionsgate portal, something like that. Sometimes it was just when I was in the area. But I would go as much as I could to Joshua Tree National Park. And I remember so many times that I would just walk out of my car, and as soon as I stepped onto the dirt and the rocks and I just felt that vastness of everything, it was like I could breathe. And there were moments where I would just be sitting on a rock all by myself, and everywhere I looked was just vast open space. Now, of course, sometimes there were people. I would try to find a time where there was nobody else, because it was really nourishing for me to have that alone time. And that can also kind of overlap into the solitary witch. So you'll see how sometimes some of these archetypes overlap. For me, there's just something about the desert that really resonates with my spirit. And so even though I teach a lot about mermaid consciousness, it's interesting that I have kind of been placed in the desert, especially now living in Phoenix, Arizona. And even when I just see cactuses or rocks or anything like that, it just feels resonant. And so that's something that you'll start to notice with your primary witch archetype, is it just feels familiar to you. It feels like home in a way. Having that understanding or that sense of familiarity, it really helps, because the more that we understand ourselves, the easier it is to dive deeper into our own magic. For the desert witch, if this is your primary archetype, you thrive in the dry, vast landscapes of the desert, drawing power from the sun and the earth. Your magic is grounded, transformative, and deeply connected to survival, adaptation, and the element of fire. You find strength in solitude, and your rituals are often raw, minimalistic, and powerful. The desert teaches you patience and endurance while you honor the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. And for those of us that resonate with this desert witch energy, I'm sure that you can feel this so deeply in your spirit, where there's this deep sense of purification and initiation that comes with being in the desert. There's no room for veils. There's no room for masks. It literally exposes the truth of who you are. So sometimes you may be placed in the desert because you're really supposed to come into this space of authenticity. And also because it is your particular soul contract to work with that energy. So all of us, whatever our witch archetypes are, we have a co-creation and a co-creative soul contract with the earth to work within specific spaces on the earth. So that's also something to kind of keep in mind with each of these archetypes, is how it connects to your role in working with the earth and the elements. So kitchen witch is a very different energy. And the kitchen witch, if that is your primary archetype, for you, the heart of the home is where magic happens. You create sacred spells with every meal, infusing food with intention and healing energy. Your practice revolves around using everyday ingredients to manifest your desires, protect your space, and nurture those around you. From herbal teas to protective charms, you see magic in every household item and turn mundane tasks into sacred rituals. So just like the desert witch was very fiery and very passionate, the kitchen witch has a different kind of warmth. The kitchen witch's energy is a warmth of being nurturing and thriving in these cozy home environments. It's creating the magic of home, the magic of comfort, the magic of nourishment, of the magic of what you can create with your intention, and then using it to ingest into your body. So this is a very special kind of magic. And I really advocate that even if this is not your primary archetype, that you start to weave at least little rituals or practices of being a kitchen witch into your everyday experience, because the practice of using magic with food and herbs and things that we can ingest is not only very healing to our bodies, but it's also healing to anything that we have connected to disordered eating or issues that we face about body image or things like that. It's really helping to use this magic of food and herbs and things that we can weave into our daily life to heal our relationship with food. And then we have the Green Witch, and the Green Witch is very whimsical. She is very connected to nature. And so this can look different based on where you are on the planet. You know, it could be a lush forest. It could be a small garden. There's many ways that the Green Witch can thrive. And so just know that however your particular space is connected to nature, that is your expression of the Green Witch. So for a Green Witch, you have a deep connection to nature, plants, and the earth. Green witches work closely with the energy of herbs, trees, and flowers. So again, there's some overlap because kitchen witches use herbs and things like that. So we will see some overlap. The Green Witch works closely with the energy of herbs, trees, and flowers, using them for healing, spell work, and protection. So your rituals often take place outdoors, and you feel most powerful when surrounded by greenery. You're in tune with the cycles of the seasons and the natural world, drawing strength from the earth's abundance. And that's why there is this image of the rabbit here, because the rabbit is indicative of abundance and fertility and growth and gentleness. And there is something very whimsical and very gentle and also very alluring about the green witch. There is this abundant empress energy within the green witch. Then we have the hedge witch, which is a very different energy. And the hedge witch is so unique unto herself. She even has a different way of wording the term witch. Each of these is 2 words. It's the descriptive word and then witch, but hedge witch is just a name. It's a title unto herself. And so hedge witches can look very different. It's kind of like the energy of Aquarius, where there's no Aquarius that's really the same as another Aquarius. It's the same with every hedge witch, that every hedge witch embodies this energy in a personal and unique expression. But there are some qualities that resonate and kind of all hedge witches can identify with. So if you resonate as a hedge witch, as your primary archetype, you're a bridge between worlds, often working with both the physical and spiritual realms. Hedge witches practice a combination of herbalism and spirit communication, journeying between the seen and unseen. You are drawn to nature spirits, ancestors, and the cycles of life and death. Your magic is often focused on healing, divination, and connecting with the natural world around you. So what we can intuit about the hedge witch is that a lot of her personal power comes from working with outside powers of external energies, whether that's ancestor work or whether that's working with the elementals like the fairies or mermaid energy, or whether that's working with plant medicine, whether that's ayahuasca or psilocybin. There's many ways that the hedge witch can be a guide between worlds and a guide between consciousness. We could even say that the hedge witch could use AI or other consciousnesses like that, because it's really just learning how to find the sensitivity of working with other energies. We can also say that the hedge witch could work with animals and be an animal communicator or animal whisperer. So again, this hedge witch term is this overlaying term of many ways of channeling and working with other spiritual energies and kind of bridging the physical and the spiritual worlds. And then we have this term solitary witch. So the solitary witch prefers to walk her magical path alone, following the connection and personal, or let me rephrase that. If you are a solitary witch, and that is your primary archetype, you prefer to walk your magical path alone, following your intuition and personal connection to magic. Your practice is deeply personal and introspective, with rituals that often involve meditation, journaling, and spell work in your own sacred space. You don't rely on a coven or group to deepen your practice. You find power in your independence and inner knowing. So just like there may have been lifetimes where we could have been like monks or things like that, spending a lifetime like meditating in a cave or in a monastery. The power of the solitary witch is really on building personal energy and personal frequency, so that frequency can then create the change within the light grid and within the energy of the planet. So the solitary witch has a very important role because it's all about introspection and reflection and contemplation and personal growth in order to dive deeper into the self. And as you dive deeper into the self and you receive these inner downloads, you raise your own vibration. And then as you raise your own vibration, that's affecting the vibration of the planet. So all of us really need to develop our own solitary witch. It's really beautiful to be a part of a group or a community or a coven. But again, when we start to really embody our own solitary witch, even if that's not our primary archetype, it really leads to a lot of self-discovery and illumination, which is important regardless of which archetype you connect with most. And then we have the magical sea witch. And this is another archetype that I also resonate with, working with mermaid consciousness, though it's not my primary one, interestingly enough, right? But as a sea witch, if this is your primary archetype, you are drawn to the magic of water and the ocean. The ebb and flow of the tides mirror your magical practice, and you work with the moon's energy to manifest your desires. So whether you're collecting seaweed, shells, or working with salt water, your rituals are fluid, adaptable, and powerful. You find magic in the rhythms of water and the connection between the physical and emotional realms. So the sea witch works with the energy of water, and water is about intuition, it's about flow, it's about emotions. We can also see some overlap here where the cosmic witch works with lunar cycles and lunar energy, but the sea witch does the same, but for different reasons, where the cosmic witch is focused on the galactic energies and how all of the planetary alignments and transits kind of play out. The sea witch is more involved in this feminine, intuitive part of the moon and how it's connected to the lunar cycles and connected to the tides. And so there's all sorts of ways that we kind of see this overlap. And we can see how the sea witch is very connected to the element of water, where the desert witch is very connected with fire. So again, whenever we want to focus on working or understanding a different element deeper, we can kind of take the path of any of these archetypes. So sea witches, you don't necessarily have to work with ocean energy. Not every sea witch is near an ocean. It could also be rivers, it could be lakes, it could just be your own bathtub or shower, or, you know, just working with the energy and the magic of water. So we're going to talk more about how to use those water rituals in a few moments. So this is the formula for magic that I received. And this is a really powerful formula that can help us to understand the 3 building blocks for any magical practice. And we're going to dive deeper into this in witch school. And this is going to be really helpful when we start creating our own invocations or our own spells or things like that. When we have each of these building blocks, then it will create the foundation to build magic. So magic equals personal power plus intention plus meaning. So personal power is basically that dark feminine power, and really, again, power is neutral. So we can just even take out the dark feminine for the understanding of the core of this formula. So it's our personal power, or another term for personal power is will, like how we want to use our will, how we want to direct our energy. Okay, so that's the first step, is our personal power. We honor and embody our personal power and our will. And then the next step is intention. So then we decide, using our power, directing our power, what our intention is with that power. Maybe it's about bringing healing into an area of your life or your body. Maybe it's about calling in more abundance. Maybe it's about healing wounds around relationships so that you can call in a sacred partnership. Whatever the intention is, we start with the power, and then we choose our intention of how we want to direct our power. And then we add meaning. So that's when we start to work with the elements, we start to work with sacred tools, and we give and assign meaning to specific objects, or we use objects or talismans or whatever it is, depending on the example. We use things that have meaning in order to create this physical representation of our intention. So for a desert witch, that could be using candle magic and thinking of an intention as you light a candle, or you use a specific colored candle. You know, for a sea witch, that could be speaking blessings or affirmations over your water and drinking the water. For a kitchen witch, that could be thinking of an intention as you make food and using specific herbs or spices that already have meaning tied into them to give this physical representation of your personal power and intention. And that's how we create magic. We use our mind and our imagination, we focus our intention outward, and then we co-create with the physical representation of elemental objects to bring that into being. So from our imagination, it materializes into physical form. So how do we connect with our archetype, our witch archetype, for daily magic? Each archetype can weave its magic into daily rituals, habits, and personal growth. Diving deeper into your archetype can create magical shifts and catalyze your intuitive gifts. So, eventually, what I would like to see with this work is building on each of these archetypes and establishing daily practices and things that you can do. Again, this is just very introductory. So, know that these are just some simple examples to get all of us started. What I really loved about this woman, Aisha K. Faines, whose work I followed called Women Love Power. Now, tragically, she ended up dying a year or two ago. She was just about the same age as me. So I think that she would have just been 40 this year. And it was interesting too, because it was like she completed her work, she brought forth her creative vision, and it was like her soul contract was complete. And so this woman has done all of this work on the feminine archetypes, and it started with the same thing. It started with a quiz. What's your feminine archetype? And from that quiz, she started to do all of this research and studying all of these women and their archetypal energies and how they were playing out. And she created this whole body of work where she started to see the feminine archetypes in books and music and literature, and talks about how to embody each archetype, practices to do, and types of relationships that you might be involved in. So it's very thorough, it's very deep, it's very fascinating. If you want to dive deeper into her work, I really recommend it. And you can find it on womenlovepower.com. That is my hope, that we can continue this work with the witch archetypes and really see how it plays out in all of these different areas. But one of the things that I learned from her about archetype work is that archetypes only work if we are actively working with them. And that's why it's really helpful to work with a primary archetype, a primary witch archetype in this case, because you're going to see more of a significant impact or result in your life if you're working with one at a time. Just like if we're working with many spirit guides or many ascended masters, sometimes it can be kind of hard to figure out how to get organized, or who can help with what, or who is supporting in what. So it just kind of helps to break the information into smaller, digestible pieces of information that we can integrate. When you start to have daily practices where you're incorporating your witch archetype, you're going to see your magic unfold in a much deeper way, a more meaningful way. So this is an extra piece that wasn't included in the quiz, but is a part of my research involving the witch archetypes, is how they're related to each chakra. The cosmic witch is related to the third eye, and this is due to the connection to the cosmos, higher realms, and intuitive vision. So again, this is another way of working with each of the archetypes and diving deeper, is when you want to work with a specific chakra, then you can work with the energy or the embodiment of that archetype. Cosmic witch makes perfect sense, right? The third eye is how we receive and connect with the divine mind. And so the planets have all of these galactic higher energies, and it's all like kind of bringing it through and awakening our third eye. The desert witch is the solar plexus, and that's due to her strength, independence, and power of transformation and survival. So again, if you want to work on your inner power, then you might want to work with the desert witch archetype. Now, the kitchen witch is connected to the sacral chakra. And the reason for that is because of her creativity, nourishment, and the magic of transformation through everyday tasks. Also, because the sacral chakra is one of the lower chakras that's more connected to the body, when we want to heal the sacral chakra, we really want to focus on nurturing and nourishing our body. So the kitchen witch has the sacral chakra energy of creating, because she's creating food, she's creating all of these spells with herbs and spices, but it's also about the nourishment and the taking care of the actual body. But the green witch is connected to the root chakra, because the witch is all about earth magic. So if we want to feel safe, if we want to feel rooted, if we want to feel grounded, we're going to go into nature. And so the green witch teaches us how to ground into nature, stability, and our connection to the earth. Now, the hedge witch is completely different, on the opposite side of the spectrum. She's connected to the crown chakra, and that's due to her role in bringing through spiritual knowledge, bridging worlds, whether that's different types of consciousness or just accessing higher dimensional realms of reality. She's all about bridging the world, bringing in this divine wisdom. And it could also be connecting either whether it's higher frequencies of galactic consciousness and divine wisdom, or it could be ancestral work of working with the energies and the spirits that are here or that are still kind of part of our lineage. The solitary witch is interesting. It's the throat chakra. So even if the solitary witch is not necessarily speaking or sharing with groups of people, it's all about personal truth, inner wisdom, and the power of self-expression and communication with the self. So if you want to strengthen your throat chakra, you can work with your solitary witch archetype and find that personal communication. And oftentimes the solitary witch can help us to find our voice through writing and through journaling. And then we have the sea witch, which is connected to the heart chakra. And that's because water is all about emotions and emotional healing, intuition, and connection to the flow of water and feelings. So now we're going to go through the questions of the quiz. So you may recognize your answers to some of this. You might have also chosen some of these answers and maybe not known which they were associated with. And even if you chose this answer and it's not your primary archetype, again, know that we all are made up of many things. It's just kind of giving you an example or a framework of where to go from. The cosmic witch archetype is mystical and thoughtful. So if you are already, for example, a mystical person and you're very thoughtful and you put a lot of consideration into things, or you've been connected to spiritual ideas, but maybe you kind of don't know what to study, then if that is your natural personality type, you probably might be very interested in learning about astrology or learning about the cycles of the moon or learning about starseed wisdom. So it can go either way. It can either be if you are already drawn to astrology and you want to keep tabs on what's happening with the planets, then you feel like a cosmic witch. Or if you are mystical and thoughtful, but you're brand new to spiritual work, then working with astrology is a great way to embody your cosmic witch. So then the desert witch is passionate and fiery, just like that solar plexus energy, where in the vast openness, it's like the fire can really come into being. The kitchen witch has that personality of being warm and nurturing and inviting, just like when someone invites you over and they make you a special meal, it's like you feel cozy in their presence. So where the desert witch has this like really passionate fire that's like burning away and transforming and purifying, the kitchen witch has this energy of like the fire at your fireplace that everyone's getting warmth from. Then the green witch is grounded and patient. That's an energy of understanding the cycles of the earth and the cycles of growth. As we really start to become connected to nature, we understand the divine timing of all things, and it establishes that energy of patience. Now, the hedge witch has this energy of being curious and spiritual. So oftentimes, if you feel curious about different types of energies or consciousness, or you feel curious about how to connect, or you pull tarot cards or oracle cards, it's just this curiosity that kind of guides you into understanding the other worlds. And the solitary witch is independent and introspective. Now, this can be that a solitary witch is also introverted, but it might not necessarily be so. You might be a very social person, but when it comes to your spiritual practice and working with the craft, maybe you just prefer that practice is only for you, that that's something that is your self-care, for example. And the sea witch, just like water, is fluid and adaptable. So maybe the sea witch could be warm and nurturing, like the kitchen witch in some spaces, and maybe more mystical or spiritual or curious in others. So the sea witch can also kind of take on all of these different qualities. Now, when it comes to magical tools, this is really just an idea of how to get you started. So if you're just starting to work on your witchy altar or things like that, this is kind of where you can begin. If you want to connect to your cosmic witch, you can use star, moon, and planet symbolism. So that could be like crescent moon objects. It could be that you have like an actual ephemeris or maybe a moonology deck. You want to think, what is connected to the cosmos and how can I show that in an object? The desert witch, anything related to candles, incense, desert iconography. Maybe you have an image of a snake because snake is connected to the desert witch's energy of transformation. Anything where you're holding that flame is going to help invite in your desert witch energy. Now, the kitchen witch, you could have a book of your spells and recipes. You could use kitchen utensils or spices. Sometimes we see that kitchen witches can have all of these different glass bottles, and each of the bottles are, it has like mugwort or rosemary or whatever it is. And it could be something that's very organized, or it could just be that you put like a cute little wooden spoon on your altar, and that, helps to invite in the energy of your kitchen witch. So again, this is just to kind of get you started in your own creativity. And then I want you to really sit and contemplate with your primary archetype or the archetype that you want to call in and ask how she would like to be represented in your altar or sacred space. For a green witch, you can use essential oils, flower essences, plants. You could have fresh flowers. Maybe you have like a little potted plant or a potted herb that you want to put there. Anything that's going to help you connect with that element of nature. Hedge witch, or the element of earth, rather. Hedge witch is always connected to divination. So it could be a pendulum or your deck of tarot cards or oracle cards or runes or anything that is an idea of how to connect with other realms of consciousness. For a solitary witch, you can have a journal and a pen. So whether that's a gratitude journal, like the quiz answer was about, or a different kind of journal or notebook, anything where you can kind of bring in your reflections and keep them safely and keep a record of them. For those of you that are not familiar with the term Book of Shadows, even though I put it on solitary witch, it could be for any witch archetype. A Book of Shadows is a handwritten, or it could be typed actually, a book that keeps records of spells and invocations. And for some of us that have the luxury of being part of a long line of people that identified with the witch archetype, it could be something that's passed down from generation to generation, and every generation adds to it. So it could become sort of like a family heirloom. Or if you're just the first witch to kind of come out in your family out of the witch closet, maybe it's just for you. It could be your own invocations and spells. It could be other invocations and spells that you find working with other witches through social media or internet research. It can be anything that you want. This term, Book of Shadows, is a record of your own personal spell keeping. And then for a sea witch, you can use seashells, you can use salt water, you can use blessed water, little jars of water from specific locations. I have on my mermaid altar here, I have some water from Mount Shasta. I also keep like glass bowls with seashells in it, and I put salt water in it, and I call on the energy of Yamaya to bless that water. Just figure out how you can incorporate the element of water in your sacred space, figuring out what's happening in the astrology for the week ahead. And then you plan your week according to that. That's a very grounding practice, because if you know what's coming, you can prepare for it, and preparation helps us to feel grounded. Whereas a desert witch is going to feel more grounded being outside, hiking on the rocks, being in a vast open space, sitting outside and really tuning in to the energy of the earth. Or maybe it's about lighting a candle and just being in that space outside. So there's something about connecting to the vastness and openness, or the groundedness of the earth and the rocks, that is going to help the desert witch to feel grounded. Now, the kitchen witch is going to feel grounded by nourishing meals, intentional eating, and spell work. So anything to nourish the body helps the desert witch feel grounded. The green witch feels grounded when she's gardening or spending time in nature, or anything that's connected to the earth. A hedge witch feels grounded when she's working with divination or has ancestor support, or maybe it's a plant medicine ceremony or channeling. And we have to understand that as every archetype is unique, maybe working with channeling or divination might feel very ungrounded for those of us that don't feel that that's our primary archetype. But when we are sort of this guide between the worlds, like the hedge witch is, having access to the higher realms helps to feel grounded because you feel that support. So that's kind of a deeper understanding of why some of these practices are incorporated in the way that they are. The solitary witch is going to feel grounded when she's meditating, journaling, contemplating, or reflecting. So if you feel ungrounded as a solitary witch, that's your cue to say, hey, I need some introspection time. I need to just sit in silence and come back to my own energy, and then I'll start to feel grounded. The sea witch will feel grounded when she's spending time near any body of water, or, taking an intentional bath or shower, maybe blessing the water or infusing the water with seashells or crystals or essential oils. And swimming is another way that the sea witch could feel grounded, just being in the water. When we talk about spell work, again, there's a lot of overlap here. But this will just kind of give you an idea, especially if you're new to magic and you're like, I don't even know where to focus. Where can I start? Based upon your archetype, this will give you the groundwork of how you can start building out your spells, which is what we're going to talk about more in Witch School. So for the cosmic witch, you can do dream or astral magic. So you can ask for a dream, and then you can wait and see what comes through. And maybe you could say a fun little invocation before bed. You can also work with the energies of the planet. So you could build a spell. For example, the sun was squaring Pluto a couple days ago. That was about like personal power. You could build a spell for how to embrace personal power, or how to overcome blocks of stepping into your personal power. And that's using the natural planetary cycles to kind of craft your specific spell work. The desert witch is really good at focusing on shadow work and personal transformation. So there's something about the element of fire that helps us to purify and burn away. And it also is really powerful for any type of transformation. So anytime you want to up level or you want to move into a new chapter of your life, you can focus on this type of work, especially with candle magic. The kitchen witch, I love this. It's about sensuality and delight. So in the quiz, one of the answers was creating a chocolatey love spell. And that's so perfect for the energy of the queen witch and this sensuality and delight. I do want to say, and I didn't say this at the beginning, that all of the work in Witch School and in uncovering the witch archetypes, we focus on the energy of white magic. And so what that means is that we focus on magic that is based on upliftment, that is based on unconditional love, and that is of no harm to ourselves or others. So that's something that you really want to make sure of. So when I used the answer of crafting a love spell, I wanted to differentiate that a love spell where you are using the energy of trying to force or manipulate someone's personal will would be considered black magic. But a love spell where you use elements of chocolate or other spices that invite in sensuality or opening of the heart, and your love spell is dedicated to opening your heart to receive love, or to deepen your connection with your partnership, or to open up your body to receive more pleasure. These are all intentional in a way of unconditional love and no harm to yourself or others. So that's kind of a differentiation of making sure that your spell work is in the spectrum of white magic versus black magic. I really advocate that you be very mindful of just setting the intention with any kind of spell work, that it's for the highest good of all, the highest timeline for all, and the highest frequency of love. And the reason for that is because whenever we have an intention that is in that spectrum of black magic, whether we're trying to force our will upon someone or something, it's always going to come back to us. There is the threefold law, where it's basically whatever you put out into the universe comes back to you times 3. So if you're doing spell work that is intended for your abundance and your healing, but also the healing of the planet, that's going to come back to you 3 times over in a good way. If you're upset because somebody is rude to you and you write their name on like a piece of paper and you freeze it, which I had to learn the hard way. I didn't even realize that things like that were black magic on my witch path, but it's almost like you're trying to freeze someone out and you think that it's an innocent practice, but you could also unintentionally be freezing yourself out of other things. So we want to keep other people out of our magic as much as possible. So green witch spells could be about healing and abundance. And that's why it's very connected to the elements of nature and earth. And, just like there's an abundance in nature, working with the earth can be very healing. That's why the green witch can really focus on those topics. Hedge witch, of course, it's going to be spirit communication and divination, working with other consciousness. Solitary witch, inner wisdom and contemplation. Maybe you could set an invocation or a spell of how to understand a specific lesson in your life. Maybe you're experiencing a pattern, or it feels like you're always attracting the same types of people or the same types of situations. You could use your spell work as a solitary witch to ask for the pearl of wisdom to be shown. You could bring in all of the different elements and things to weave that into a spell. Sea witch, ocean or water spells. So using the element of water as a framework for your magic. So these are some options that you can kind of start off with your morning ritual. Now, the reason why I chose morning in the quiz is because morning is the time where we really connect the energy for the day, and we have like a blank canvas, right? It's like our neural pathways are fresh. We're ready to receive whatever it is that we want. We were ready to set the intention for the day. So when we start our morning with a very simple, easy, magical infused practice, we're going to start our whole day embodying our inner witch. So for a cosmic witch, you could listen to a daily astrology forecast or check the moon phase. For a desert witch, you could light a candle to practice candle magic. For example, you could light an orange candle and you could say an invocation or set an intention to embody your creativity, which is connected to the sacral chakra, or to heal your womb space that's connected to the sacral chakra. For a kitchen witch, I really like this idea, and I've started doing it every day myself. Stirring your coffee clockwise to seal the intention for the day. Also, when it comes to magic and white magic, we want to make sure that we're doing things clockwise. Generally, it's because that moves the energy forward. If we're doing something counterclockwise, it's like we're going backwards. Of course, it's all about intention, but doing things counterclockwise have also been associated in the past with black magic. So it doesn't mean that like, oh my God, I accidentally stirred my coffee the wrong way. Am I bringing negativity into my life? It's not like that. It's always intention, but it's just an easier practice to know when I'm moving things clockwise, I'm moving things forward, just like the clock is moving forward. I've started a specific ritual where I've used pumpkin pie spice, and I have a video on my TikTok and Instagram about how to do this, because each of the elements of pumpkin pie spice, each of the specific spices are representing some form of abundance or success. So when you pour that spice in and you stir it clockwise, you can think of your intention calling in abundance and success and prosperity. And that's using your personal power and your intention and meaning of each of these spices to set your intention for the day. And I will tell you that I've been doing that for about a week and a half now, and I've really noticed a difference. So magic does work. But again, we have to believe, we have to have faith in our rituals, and we have to have faith in our power. For a green witch, that could just be spending time in nature with a cup of tea. It doesn't have to be a cup of tea. I just use that as an example, but spending a few minutes outside, maybe it's sitting on your patio or sitting in the garden, or if the weather is not permitting, maybe it's just opening up your window and hearing the birds. Or it could be, if it's inclement weather, that you turn on the sounds of birds, or you listen to the sounds of nature, or you water your plants. Anything where you're infusing that idea of nature into your day. For a hedge witch, it could be pulling an animal spirit guide and figuring out which animal is your guide for the day. For a solitary witch, you could meditate and listen to peaceful music. You could also listen to affirmations for the day. So it's just anything about where you're taking something in internally, and that's helping you to build your intention. And for the sea witch, you could speak blessings or affirmations over your water. So just like the kitchen witch is stirring clockwise and she's thinking about that intention, and that's putting the personal power and the intention in, it's the same with the sea witch, where it's speaking, spelling out, and then the energy of water, the frequency of water holds that, and then you drink the water. So you're infusing your body with your intention, your meaning, and your personal power. Magical locations. This is kind of like, where do I practice my magic? I heard people using this term living room witch. So maybe all of us feel that way, that we are a living room witch, where it's easier to practice our magic in our home, where we feel safe, where there's not people outside watching us or looking. It's not always easy to draw a giant pentacle and have this like scene from The Craft where you and all your friends are invoking the elements and like the tide is coming in. Of course, we love having those magical spaces. Oftentimes our magic is going to take place at home, but if we want to dive deeper into embodying these archetypes, here's some examples of where you could start on where you can practice your magic. For a cosmic witch, under the stars, under the moon, anything where you're feeling the actual energy of the planets and the cosmos and allowing you to connect with that is going to help to embrace your magic. For a desert witch, that's easy. The desert, anywhere where you can feel the heat of the sun in a vast open space. And that doesn't mean that you have to do your magic during the day, especially for those of us that live in desert environments. We know that it's hot all day long. Feeling just the energy of heat is like very purifying. Just being outside or anywhere where there's a vast open space where it's kind of like your consciousness can breathe. That's going to help you to feel more magical. Kitchen witch, in the kitchen. Cozy kitchen surrounded by warmth. The green witch, it could be a lush forest, it could be a garden, anywhere where you are connected to nature. A hedge witch, it's between the worlds where the physical and spiritual meet. So that could look different. It could look like you doing some type of meditation or invocation, or maybe that's going to some type of spiritual center or some type of ceremony where there is this connection happening between the worlds. A solitary witch, you're going to feel magical when you experience quiet solitude. So maybe that term living room witch really identifies with your energy and your magic, because in your home, you feel safest. So it's just anywhere where there's like the quiet, where you can tune inward. And then the sea witch, it could be by the ocean, but it doesn't have to be. Anywhere near water or where you can infuse the energy of water. Spirit animals. So I also wanted to use the term familiar. The term familiar is always connected to witches, because a familiar is like an animal that is very deeply connected with the magic of the witch. And so even if you have a specific spirit animal on here that's different than your primary archetype, you could also have a familiar. So for example, I have my cat Isis. I would consider her my familiar. The other day, for example, I had this dream. It was a really disturbing dream about this energy in my life that I've been doing a lot of like boundary work with. And in the dream, I was like trying to set a boundary and trying to move him out of my energy field. And literally, as I woke up from that dream, Isis, my cat, like threw up a hairball. And it was literally like she was purging physically the energy of what I was experiencing in the dream time. And so when we start to understand the consciousness of our pets, sometimes there's a difference between a pet and a familiar. You could have several cats. Maybe some cats you're very connected with, but one is your familiar. There's some type of like understanding or consciousness, or it could be your dog. It could be a bird. It could be anything, but there's just this understanding. And if you know, you know, that's all I want to say about that. If you know, you know, if you have a familiar, or you've had one, you'll know that it's an animal with a very activated and awakened higher consciousness that's here to help you with your magic. But that doesn't mean that we can't also have spirit animals. And oftentimes the spirit animals that we have, they may be our familiars, they may not be our familiars, but they have specific qualities that when we embody those qualities, it helps with our magic and it helps us to identify with our archetype. So for a cosmic witch, the spirit animal could be an owl because owls are nocturnal. It's connected to the stars and night. Whereas a desert witch could be a snake because a snake symbolizes healing. It symbolizes transformation. Like the snake is always shedding its skin. It's the same with the desert witch. She's always transforming. She's always up leveling. The desert witch that you see today is not going to be the desert witch that you see in a month or 2 months from now. Her consciousness is always going to be changing. And so that's why the desert witch is really a powerful symbol for her magic. For a kitchen witch, the animal is bear because it's very protective and nurturing. And just like bears hibernate and like they feel very safe and cozy in their space, it's the same with the kitchen witch. And I think it's important to note that although kitchen witches have this like very warm and inviting energy, there's also this protectiveness and this fierceness, just like Mother Bear medicine is associated with Mother Mary, for example. But the energy of Mother Mary and the energy of Mother Bear medicine is like this motherly protection, just like a bear is very fierce and ferocious for anyone that's trying to mess with her cubs. It's the same where a kitchen witch can be very warm and inviting, and she'll invite you into your home and make you feel very cozy. But there's also this aspect of having boundaries, of protecting that warmth, protecting that comfort. So especially if a kitchen witch is learning how to develop stronger boundaries, embodying the spirit animal of bear is going to be very helpful for her. And we saw in the images of Green Witch that a rabbit is very helpful for connecting to fertility and growth. And other animals that Green Witch could be connected to are deer, for example, or fox, or basically any animal could be connected with the Green Witch. But the reason why I chose rabbit is because there's this gentleness and this abundance that's connected to the rabbit. And also rabbits are seen as magical, just like, we see them with magicians pulling a rabbit out of the hat. There's something about the energy of rabbit that's very mystical. For a hedge witch, that could be a raven, a messenger between the worlds. And for a solitary witch, and for most of us that are witches, it could be a cat, right? Independent and mystical. And for a sea witch, it could be a dolphin because dolphins are playful and wise. But again, it could be any marine animal. So this is just sort of an idea to get you started. And if you're like, hey, I'm a desert witch, but I really love dolphins and I want to connect with that, please connect with as many archetypes and as many energies as you can, but just know that like this is a path that's going to help you to go deeper into your archetype or to develop a better relationship with another one that you want to increase or strengthen. So now we come to this topic of how does each of these witch archetypes handle difficulties? Witches are all about sovereignty. And so when we establish our sovereignty, we have to take responsibility for our life. We have to take responsibility for our actions, and we have to move out of victim consciousness. And a part of that is learning how to deal with difficulties. So for a cosmic witch, that could look like looking to the stars for insight and direction. I shared about the Sun square Pluto example earlier and how you could create a spell to bring in more power or to heal your relationships with authority figures, because that's the specific astrology of the day, but it can also help to handle difficulties. Because, for example, if you're feeling really challenged that day, by understanding why, understanding that it's because a specific planet and the energies of that planet are interacting with another planet's energy, it can offer a lot of relief, because you can see like, okay, today feels really challenging. It helps to understand why. And it also helps to know that I won't feel like this forever. So that could be with daily transits. It could also be when you're going through personal transits, especially if those are long-term transits, whether that be a Saturn return or whether that be a Pluto transit that you're going through, or a Neptune transit where you feel like a lot of confusion. It's helpful to understand the why and also the time frame of how long to expect that you'll be experiencing this challenge or difficulty. For a desert witch, that's about finding strength in the fires of transformation. Again, the desert helps us to purify. It helps us to remove our masks. It helps us to understand and dive deeper into our authentic truth. So when we move head on into the fires rather than away from the fires, when we move towards the fear rather than away from the fear, that's when we find our strength. We find our strength by diving head first into the experience. And that's where we develop that fearlessness. For a kitchen witch, that could be finding comfort and nourishment. So when you're having a difficult day, practice self-care through making yourself a nourishing meal, smelling a specific herb or something that's going to help to awaken your senses. Kitchen witch is all about sensuality. So the senses are going to help bring you back into your body and maybe out of your mind when you're in a space of unproductive thoughts. For a hedge witch, that could be looking for signs from the spirit world. So like pulling a card or calling on the ancestors and recognizing that you have support in this difficult situation, that you don't have to go through this alone. For a solitary witch, that's finding your inner power through reflection and meditation, turning inward, coming back to your own energy. For a sea witch, that's learning how to go with the flow and trust in the tides and really understand the element of surrender in your life. Now, we can dive deeper into the energy of each of these goddesses to invoke our inner witch and our inner witch archetype. So these are just some examples. And again, feel free to listen to your own intuition based on your lineage, based on what you're drawn to, and just know that these are just some ideas that can help get you started. And the reason for that is because each of these goddesses are another layer of archetypal qualities and energy that help us to understand each of these archetypes. So for the cosmic witch, that's Hathor, because she's the Egyptian goddess of love and joy, music, and the stars. And she represents cosmic energy and celestial magic. So if you're a cosmic witch, you can call on Hathor and have her be a part of your invocations and your rituals and your understanding of the planetary medicine. For a desert witch, the Morrigan. The Morrigan is one of my main guides, and she is also the guide that's going to be walking us through each of the initiations in Witch School 101. So the Morrigan is amazing, and she is the Celtic sovereignty goddess of transformation and sovereignty. She embodies power, shadow work, and personal strength, which is everything that the desert witch embodies. For the kitchen witch, that could be Hestia, who is the goddess of the hearth, the home, and family. She represents warmth, protection, and nurturing energy. And for the green witch, it's a little similar with Gaia, the earth mother, and she represents nature, fertility, and the life-giving power of the earth. For the hedge witch, that could be Hecate. And Hecate is often associated with the craft, regardless of which archetype you resonate with most. If you really want to heal the witch wound, I would recommend working with her. And so Hecate is a goddess of magic, witchcraft, and the crossroads. She connects the physical and spiritual realms, which is everything the hedge witch does. The solitary witch, we went with the goddess Artemis, which is the goddess of the hunt, wild animals, and independence. She embodies solitude, self-reliance, and inner wisdom, which are the qualities of the solitary witch. And the sea witch is all about Yamaya, who is the ocean goddess that represents healing, motherhood, and the nurturing power of water. So once you start to understand your specific witch archetype, it's first understanding who you are. And then once you understand who you are, then it's about how your individual role fits into the co-creative role of the community of synarchy. And so for a cosmic witch, you can offer services of being a cosmic explorer. So you can help your community by sharing about the transits. You can offer astrology readings, and you can figure out how to use this energy, this magic that you have to help others to understand and become their own cosmic explorers. As a desert witch, you could be a passionate force for change. You could be a disruptor. You could be an advocate for a cause that you care about. And it's like using that fire and that power of transformation to awaken people, to wake people up, to make big changes in the world. A kitchen witch, you're here to be a healer and a nurturer. So sometimes that could be about actually inviting people into your home and making meals for them. It could also be that you walk through the world with this energy of being a healer and nurturing people, even if it's not with food. You just naturally have these divine qualities that can support those around you. As a green witch, you are a protector and a provider. Just like nature provides and nature protects, you can embody those same qualities. For a hedge witch, you're a guide between the worlds. If you are really involved in like a specific type of journeying, or there's a specific medicine that calls to you, maybe it's about guiding others through that and becoming certified, or finding a shaman or a healer that you can learn from or apprentice with and do your own types of journeys. Or maybe it's just about doing your own introspective work and journeys, and then sharing what you learn and what you receive with the world. For a solitary witch, it's about being a solitary wise woman. And that doesn't mean that you're alone. It just means that you embody your personal truth. And as you embody your personal truth and your personal wisdom, you invite others into finding their own inner truth, which is really important. And then the sea witch, you can offer this calming and intuitive guidance towards flow, teaching other people how to flow, how to shapeshift, how to understand and kind of maneuver through different situations, how to connect with your feminine energy. Sea witches could work with mermaid energy and divine feminine energy. So it's just about, how does this energy of water translate and how I can be of service to my community? And that's the question that we can ask for each of these archetypes, is how does the energy of my archetype translate into how I can be of service to my community? Then seasonal magic. So this could just kind of show you if you're new to the archetypes based on what seasons you already resonate with. This could give you information about what archetype you might be. This is also helpful when it is already a particular season of figuring out which archetype to connect to, or which archetype might already be strongest if you want to work with that energy or kind of amplify that seasonal magic. So for a cosmic witch, it's every season. Every season has a cosmic rhythm. It's learning how to attune to wherever the planets are and how the planets are communicating with each other, or the moon, the phase of the moon. For a desert witch, that could often be summer because it has a fiery energy and transformation. For a kitchen witch, it's any season as long as they're in the kitchen, right? It's really figuring out based on what season it is. Maybe there's seasonal fruits or seasonal herbs or seasonal recipes that you can kind of whip up in this space of your kitchen. For a green witch, it's going to be spring for renewal and rebirth and growth. For a hedge witch, that's winter for rest and inner magic and going within. For a solitary witch, that could be fall for introspection and shadow work. So again, there's some overlap where the desert witch can focus on shadow work, but oftentimes personal transformation and contemplation involves a lot of shadow work. And that's why the fall was chosen for solitary witch. And for the sea witch, much like the kitchen witch, it's any season as long as it has to do with the water. But think about how every season water changes, right? Water turns to ice in the snow in winter, and water is connected to swimming and pools in the summer and beaches. Figure out how the element of water is communicating within that season, and then work with that based on that particular season's magic. Ritual settings is a little similar to the seasons, where it's going to give you an idea of where you can practice your magic. So for a cosmic witch, you could practice your magic in a quiet room with a clear view of the night sky. A desert witch, you could be in a desert setting with the setting sun on the horizon. For a kitchen witch, you could set up candles and herbs and all sorts of things in your kitchen and make it cozy and inviting for your ritual. For a green witch, that could be in a forest clearing surrounded by trees, or you could find a special space when you're hiking, or wherever it is where you feel connected to nature. For a hedge witch, that's going to be any sacred space where you feel comfortable communing with spirit. Whereas a solitary witch is always going to want a peaceful, private space that is the right location for introspection. A sea witch could be a secluded spot by a body of water, or anywhere where you are connecting with the energy of water. So the last question for the quiz was about full moon practices. And full moons are a time of release. Full moons are very connected with witches, right? We always hear about witches dancing naked under the moonlight, right? There's a reason why these rituals are very present, because when the moon is full, that's the time where magic is very amplified. So learning how to work with not only full moon, but also the new moon, especially if you're new to lunar cycles, and kind of developing your own craft, you really want to work with new moon and full moon. These are just some examples of things that you can do to create a magical ritual for yourself. For a cosmic witch, you could dance under the moonlight and the stars, or figure out what sign the moon is in, and you could develop a specific ritual or practice based upon that sign. For a desert witch, it could be casting a circle and lighting a candle to open a space of purification. For a kitchen witch, you could gather your full moon spices and weave together a recipe for rejuvenation or release, since full moons are about release. For a green witch, you could create an offering to the earth. You could use crystals, rocks, flowers, anything about giving back. So think about full moons are releasing. So it's like, what can you release? What can you offer to the earth? For a hedge witch, you could be at a plant medicine ceremony, receiving guidance from the ancestors. Full moons are a time where veils are thinner, so it's a great time for those spirit communication practices. For a solitary witch, you could visualize what you want to release in that introspective, quiet meditation. And for a sea witch, you could leave out your moon water with special intentions for the next lunar cycle. You could also use the energy of water as a purification. For example, you could bless your bath water and take like a ritual bath where you're releasing and cleansing yourself. All right, so that finally brings us to Witch School, which is the 6-week immersive journey that I'm so excited to share with you. So if this class, if this information resonated with you, this is just the tip of the iceberg of all of the ways that you can start to incorporate magic into your daily life. And it's also going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to start to develop and build a witchy community. Witch School begins November 2nd, and that is the new moon in Scorpio. Actually, the new moon in Scorpio is the 1st, but we're going to be meeting every Saturday at 11 a.m. for 6 weeks. And this is going to be all about healing our witch wound and reclaiming our dark feminine power. The Morrigan is going to be leading this, and it's really, if you're ready to find your edge, own your magic, and live life unapologetically. And in this series of 6 weeks of masterclasses, we're going to have an opening and closing ceremony and ritual. And then we're going to go through each week, and each week we're going to have a different initiation. So there's going to be initiations for air, fire, water, and earth. And we're going to learn how to work with each of these elements and how to develop spells and invocations using these elements. There's going to be practical tips and tools and magical homework assignments so that you can start to develop your own practices. So what I really want to offer in Witch School is a foundational framework, but the foundational framework is what you get to build on for your own practice. So of course, I'm going to be offering invocations and spells and my own wisdom and my own experiences, but my hope for you is that this ignites and inspires you so that you can learn how to start your own practices. And that's why the Morrigan is guiding us, because it's a curriculum about sovereignty. She's going to teach us about being sovereign witches. And there's going to be weekly guidance from her, meditations from her. It's going to help you to develop a deeper connection to magic and a blueprint for incorporating magical practices into your daily life. It will offer a knowledge of the art of spell work, invocations, altar building, and more. And also, one of the main reasons I wanted to do this is to create our witchy spiritual community, to know that we're not alone. As we embody our inner witch, as we own our dark feminine power, we also get to be connected to witches all over the world that are doing the same thing. And really starting to build that space of co-creation and that space of support. So this masterclass is already priced at $133, and I am offering $44 before October 31st off, which is Samhain. So if you enroll by October 31st, it's $89. If you want to break it up into 2 payments, it's 2 payments of $45. There's not even an administrative fee. If you're really interested in this and it's just like, oh my gosh, like I'm really struggling financially right now. I feel so connected to this. I want to embrace my inner witch, but I don't know how I can do that right now. Email me. I offer partial scholarships, and I can also work out longer term payment plans. I always advocate that information and wisdom and education should be available to all, regardless of where we are. I don't believe that it is our fault if we are in a situation of struggle or lack. It's something that we are healing collectively, especially in this moment of Pluto being in Capricorn. So just know that if you want to be a part of this journey, message me and we will figure out a way for you to have an energy exchange that feels supportive. We're going to heal the witch wound, reclaim our dark feminine power. The Morrigan is going to help us embark on this path of initiation to unlock our inner magic and experience profound shifts in our daily life. So this is our moment to dive deep into guided rituals, elemental initiations, and the mentorship we need to liberate our inner witch and set her free. So if you're ready to answer the call and rise to the highest potential, your magic is waiting, and I would love to have you as a part of this journey. So whether you're watching the replay or you're watching live, there will be a link where you can go, or you can just go to my website at meganmermaid.com, and it should be right at the top on that banner, Witch School. The next step would definitely be if you want to be a part of Witch School. I just want to say thank you so much for being here, either live or on the replay, and for being a part of this, because your participation is helping the research, and then the research is helping to expand this new movement that's getting to be created through me. So thank you so much for joining with me today and being a part of this very first step into embracing our inner witch. Thank you so much for being here, either live or on the replay. And I'm sending you so much love and magical blessings. Have a beautiful day.